when you have healthy blood, you're going to have a healthier body, healthier brain, healthier gut.
Welcome to Commune. We are on a mission to inspire, heal, and bring the world closer together.
Okay, Catharine, Arnston, welcome to the Commune podcast. Such a treat to be with you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm honored to be here with you today and your community.
Yeah, well, we'll paddle in a canoe together for the next hour or so.
Yeah.
And see what we discover. In preparation for our conversation, I was thinking about, trends in the wellness space. And really the most prevalent trends are really not trends at all. They're actually very, very old. So I'm talking about yoga, for example, just upstairs right now from here. My wife is actually teaching teacher training in yoga. She's a yoga
sweet.
Teacher. So
I'm a yoga person.
There you go. So 3,500 years old or so. Obviously, breath work or pranayama, which has come into vogue, is an ancient practice. Fasting, I'm an intermittent faster.
Absolutely, me
Maybe
too.
We'll touch on that. Is baked into all sorts of ancient religious and philosophical traditions. Meditation is 4,000 years old. The paleo diet is maybe 2.5 million years old. Even local food is really just edible plants that grew nearby. But today, we're going to talk about the oldest plant on the planet, older than all of those things.
The oldest life, not just the plant, the oldest life on the planet.
That's right. And arguably the most nutritious food in the world. And we're going to unpack that idea. And of course, I'm talking about algae. So, Catharine, at the very highest level, what is algae?
Well, algae, I think it has some spiritual implications, being the first life on Earth, but it is its own food category. It's not a vegetable, technically, because it doesn't grow in soil. It's not an animal, and it's not a fruit. So it's referred to as a sea vegetable, but as you're going to find out, the algae that we sell and that you would probably find on any shelf, whether it's Costco or Whole Foods, doesn't actually come from the sea. It's grown, harvested as a food crop in fresh water. And I'm going to show you just a picture of a Spirulina farm and a Chlorella farm. So first of all, you need to know that algae is a food. It is not a supplement. But anyways, algae is everywhere. And there's two main types of algae. This is the very high level to give you some backdrop. There's macroalgae and microalgae. We're going to be talking about microalgae today, but let me tell you what macroalgae is. It's that big stringy stuff that you see washing up on shore, also known as seaweed or dulse or kelp. And it's always in the sea, which is why it's called seaweed. Now, it has nutritional value because it has lots of fiber and it has iodine because it comes from the ocean. But there's virtually zero nutrition. You can get a whole bag of kelp noodles. I used to do that. And you'd see there's like 5 calories because there's virtually no nutrition, but good fiber. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about microalgae. Now, it's called microalgae because it's microscopic in size and you cannot see it with your eye. In fact, it's so tiny, about 1 million of these microcells could fit on the head of a pin. Now, unlike macroalgae, which is only in the sea, microalgae is everywhere. It's in the sea. It's also in the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the soil, your swimming pool, probably your aquarium. And there are tens of thousands of strains of microalgae. Now, the two that are best known are blue-green and green algae. And an example of blue-green algae is spirulina, and an example of green algae is chlorella. I point that out that they're just examples because some people may only know algae as something, as a bloom that closes their favorite beach, and that very often it is a blue-green algae, but it is not spirulina. Spirulina, as I mentioned again, is harvested as a food crop. It is not growing in the ocean wild. That is a different type of blue-green algae. And just to give algae a little bit of a boost here, poor old algae gets a bum rap as being toxic and closing your beach and making you upset. But algae only shows up when there are toxins in the water. algae kills bacteria, and it kills it in the water, and it also kills it in your body. And we'll talk about that later on. So it shows up, it's the cleanup crew, but it's more visible than the toxins. So try not to get angry when the algae closes your beach. It's there to help you. And as you're going to learn more about algae today, that's ingestible, the spirulina and chlorella. It is the most nutrient dense, healing, detoxifying food, especially if you grow it carefully like we do. We're well known for our highest quality and preserving all the nutrients. When you take it that way, there is nothing that can match what it can do for you. And I'll walk you through the science, because those are pretty bold statements, but I have all the science to back it up.
Amazing. Yeah, I think just focusing for a moment on how old algae is, it's mind-boggling. And we're talking
almost 4 billion years.
Billion years,
right. And
evolving from blue-green, like cyanobacteria.
Oh, yeah. I'll walk people through that.
Yeah,
because you're going to find out that our mitochondria, when we talk about disease, you have to go upstream to find out what is really causing the disease. Doesn't matter whether it's Alzheimer's, brain disorders, heart disorders, cancer. It all comes down to damaged mitochondria and mitochondrial disease. You can't get any further upstream than mitochondria. And what you're going to find out is that mitochondria evolved from cyanobacteria, from like spirulina. So your mitochondria came from algae. And so it's pretty, I think it's got some spiritual ramifications, but I'm only dealing with the science right now.
Well, that's fine, because we tend to bridge the spiritual and the physical here on the show quite a bit. And, I think it's fascinating to unpack some of that, what I might call the romance between algae and mitochondria. So if algae evolved from like a cyanobacteria and became kind of a photosynthetic prokaryote organism that essentially consumes carbon dioxide and produces oxygen, it was very, very central to the oxygenation of the Earth's atmosphere. So way back when we were talking about 3.5 billion years ago, there was very, very little oxygen in the atmosphere. I think we're at about 21% now, but we were at 0.1% back then. So maybe you've got some graphs on this. So
normally I talk about this at the very end, but I'm going to jump it forward and talk because so before algae, Earth was just gas and water. There was no oxygen, as you mentioned, and no life. Now, nobody really knows why, but a small anaerobic cell started growing. Anaerobic because that's the kind of cell that survives without oxygen. So it started growing, and it generated ATP, which is cellular energy, and a byproduct of that is oxygen. So after a billion years, there was now enough oxygen on Earth that aerobic cells could grow, and they were larger, but they didn't generate ATP as well as the anaerobic cell. So what happened was the large aerobic cell engulfed the smaller aerobic cell, and I can imagine, which was struggling now because it's an aerobic cell and now the Earth is full of oxygen. And I can imagine the conversation between the two cells going something like this. Hey, little guy, the big cell says to the little anaerobic cell, I see you're struggling there. Why don't we join forces? We'll protect you from the oxygen and you can generate ATP for us. And that's exactly what happened. So cyanobacteria, like spirulina, the very first cell on Earth, was engulfed by the larger cell, but was not digested. They coexisted. And so that cyanobacteria, like spirulina, became your mitochondria. It's all proven in a process called endosymbiotic theory. And you can go on the NIH library, and this exact dynamic is explained everywhere. And we'll get to that later on, because as you're going to find out, algae has nutrients in it that can't be found in any other food and that normally would be produced by your body until the age of 30, after which they drop. And after the age of 30 is when chronic disease kicks in. And And so I think this is the missing piece for helping people, recover from because these antioxidants we're going to talk about, they stop free radical damage of the mitochondria. And so algae has everything that can get into the inner membrane of the mitochondria to stop the free radical damage. And I think it's because they came from the same family, right? So it's got like a VIP pass to get in there and protect you. We'll unpack that in more detail.
Well, no, I think it's very, very important to create this foundational knowledge, because this is about coevolution.
Yeah.
And so much of chronic disease has to do with essentially like culture outpacing evolution, because evolution is very, very slow. And so now we have all these cultural phenomena, food, on-demand entertainment, toxins, all this kind of stuff that is degrading, or that has essentially hijacked adaptive mechanisms that grew out of endosymbiotic relationships like the one between algae, which is CO2 consuming and oxygen and carbohydrate producing, and mitochondria, which is oxygen and carbohydrate consuming and CO2 producing. So so anyways, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And because I think we're going to get into why spirulina particularly is so beneficial
and
for
desperately needed, I might add.
Yeah. So let's maybe bridge into spirulina, because that is one of the specific types of algae that I think we want to talk about.
So as I mentioned, and again, I don't want to belabor this, but it is very, very important that you understand that algae is food. It is not a supplement. Supplements are made in factories with extracts that don't exist like that in nature, and they use high heat to blend it, and high heat kills enzymes, which are important for processes, including one we're going to talk about, superoxide dismutase, that's in highest concentration in spirulina. And so when your body, this is why whole foods isn't so important, because we're a part of nature, and algae is a part of nature. And so your body knows what to do with all the nutrients that are in algae because it's food. And I tell people, when you take algae, it's like listening to the Boston Symphony Orchestra. When you take a supplement, it's like listening to a grade 3 soloist. It just doesn't work very well. So Mother Nature has our best interests at heart. She's given us a beautiful concoction called algae that has 40 vitamins and minerals, including critical ones that your body needs. And so because it's food, again, grown in fresh water, and we, unlike most companies, they use high heat to dry their algae because they're lower priced and higher volume, but we don't do that. So our algae is a raw food with all the enzymes are intact, and then we just press them into these little tablets that we call bits, because they're bits of food. And they're so nutrient dense. There's so much nutrition in one tablet, because they come in little tablets, and I'll show you in a minute. They have the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables. And you may wonder how I came up with that calculation. It's because we have a quote from NASA that says 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables. 1 to 1,000. There is nothing in the world that has that kind of concentration. And it makes sense when you start to realize how tiny these microscopic algae are. And when you get that many of them condensed into these tablets that we call bits. Here, this one's spirulina, which we're going to talk about now, which is a blue-green algae, and this is Chlorella, which is a green algae. But each one of them, as I said, has the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables. Now, but the spirulina and Chlorella are quite different. They do different things in your body. They have different attributes, and you take them at different times for different reasons. And I'm going to walk you through what those are now. So spirulina, the reason why it's called blue-green algae is because see how dark it is? It has 2 pigments in it. One pigment, it's a mouthful, it's called phycocyanin. The other pigment is chlorophyll, which you know. Chlorophyll makes plants green, and chlorella only has the green one. But the blue ones, the spirulina, that blue pigment has healing properties not found, phycocyanin doesn't exist anywhere else, but healing properties not found in any other food. Like it has what's called anti-angiogenesis properties, which stops the growth of blood vessels to tumors. It also sits on top of the ACE2 receptor cell that prevents the COVID virus from getting in. So those are extra benefits. It's an antioxidant in its own right. But spirulina has always been known as an energizing algae, nourishing and energizing. So if you remember that, which is why actually we call ours ENERGYbits, because it just helps people understand what it does. By the way, ENERGYbits is packaged in blue so that you'll understand that it's a blue-green algae. So how does it give you all that energy? Well, it has the highest protein in the world. This is why it's been endorsed by the United Nations for almost 50 years as the answer to world hunger, because it has 3 times the amount of protein as steak. There is nothing in the world with more protein than spirulina algae, and you can go online and read about, it was 1974 when they had the global conference on spirulina. So it's pretty amazing. And the protein is already in individual amino acids. When you eat animal protein, it's all bound up and could take days to break down into aminos that your body needs to absorb it. Collagen powder is in smaller clusters of aminos called peptides, and they get absorbed faster. But algae protein is the fastest absorption, highest bioavailability, because the protein is already in amino acids. And then
and there's no cellulose wall, right?
Well,
so
I was just going to mention that. So
bioavailable, right?
Because spirulina, remember I said, is a cyanobacteria. It's a bacteria. No cellulose wall. So no fiber either. This is why it gets into your bloodstream so quickly, because there's nothing for your body to break down. When we first started, we got noticed by marathon runners and triathletes and then Olympic teams because they loved how it gave them energy and got into their bloodstream so quickly. And it also gave them mental energy, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it did not upset their stomach because there's no carbs. So it's ketogenic, doesn't interfere with intermittent fasting, 0 sugar, 0 chemicals, 0 caffeine. Now, the athletes at first used to laugh at me saying, well, how can something with 1 calorie per tablet give me energy? And of course, now we know calories are not calories across the board. It's what the food group does in your body, whether it spikes insulin or not, whether it's inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. So spirulina is very anti-inflammatory, the most alkaline food in the world, dense protein, which is available to your body within seconds, 99% bioavailable. And then it's the B vitamins convert it. It's loaded with B vitamins, convert it into energy for your brain and for your body. Now, it's not a spike of energy, so it's not any kind of rush, and there's also no crash. It's very, what I call quiet energy, because it's truly at the cellular level, and we'll get to that when we get to the mitochondria. So you might not even notice it, quite honestly, unless you are working out, because, you can take, we recommend at least 10 a day. I have about 100, so there's no upper limit. Our NHL players take 75 spirulina before a game, hockey game, and 75 chlorella because it pulls out toxins, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you are working out or lifting weights or something or doing yoga, you'll just have more energy. You'll lift more, you'll run faster, and you won't even notice it.
Right, and if just to hover on protein for a moment, because there's always a big debate around plant-based folks. Well, how do you get your protein? All this kind of stuff. But spirulina, if I understand correctly, is a complete protein,
yes,
such that it has all of the essential amino acids. Is
correct?
That right?
Thank you for mentioning that. It has all 9 essential aminos, and it has 18 of the 20, which is different from collagen powder, collagen powder is missing tryptophan. And in fact, both algae have tryptophan, and chlorella, as you'll find out, has the highest tryptophan in the world, 5 times more than turkey. And tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin and melatonin, which help you sleep, which is why when we get to the chlorella, you'll find out that we recommend it any time of day, but definitely before bed. The spirulina we recommend in the morning, afternoon, before a workout, because it satisfies your hunger with the high protein. It's also loaded with essential fatty acids like omega-3, but it also has it has an omega-6 in it called GLA, which stands for gamma-linolenic acid, that behaves like an omega-3 because there's no heat applied to it. The omega-6s, the terrible seed oils, canola, palm oils, they're very damaging, very inflammatory, particularly because they've been made with high heat. But GLA, because we do not heat our algae when we're drying it, is just as anti-inflammatory as an omega-6. And to prove how important GLA is, the only place that has more of it than spirulina is mother's breast milk. And Mother Nature wouldn't have put it in there if she didn't think it was good for you, because what it does is it helps the baby's brain develop. And you know, we can't have mother's breast milk after the age of 2. So spirulina is your next best shot.
Well, let me ask you specifically about the polyunsaturated fats, so PUFAs, specifically omega-3 fatty acids. So obviously a lot of people try to get omega-3s through the consumption of smash fish or fish oil supplements. So does taking spirulina provide the DHA and EPA PUFAs that are needed for, you know, optimal brain health and cardiovascular health, et cetera?
Yes, they do. Not in high numbers. And, you know, the dirty secret in the supplement industry is that you only absorb about 10% of what's in there, which is why the numbers are so high. But let me just dwell a little bit on fish oil. It is usually rancid by the time you get it because it just oxidates. And also, if you haven't seen the movie Sequestration that Netflix came out with last year, please watch it. It talks about how the poor oceans are being permanently damaged by overfishing. And what are they overfishing for? Both the fish and the fish for the fish oil. And I remind people, well, where do you think the fish get the fish oil from, the omega-3 from? They get it from algae because remember, algae is everywhere. And algae is the one where the omega-3 comes from. The fish just consolidate it in their body. So a much safer, purer way to get your omega-3 is from algae, which is where the fish get it from. And the algae, at least ours, never goes bad. We do have to put an expiry date on, for 3 years, but it never goes bad. And it never repeats. I tried for years to take fish oil and I would be burping it up, for hours. Never happens with algae. So the algae is a much safer, more stable, shelf stable, source, vegan, by the way, saves the oceans, eco-friendly, sustainable. So it's good for you and good for the earth. So I would highly recommend algae as an alternative for you. And there's other benefits that you're going to find out for brain health from both the spirulina and the chlorella, including these very critical antioxidants, like one called superoxide dismutase, that protect your brain and protect your mitochondria even more than an omega-3. Science, we're always learning about stuff. And so there's been this big push for omega-3, but if I do my job right, the people will start understanding that algae is almost the best alternative in every case, including fish oil.
Yeah, well, we stand on the shoulders of our predecessors. Omega-3s get discovered as very beneficial to health, and we find ways to supplement with it and et cetera, and find ways to get it into our diet. And then, innovators come along and stand on the shoulders of their predecessors and find more effective delivery mechanisms. And that's what you're doing. And, just as it pertains to the aldehyde repeat or the burp, I've started to integrate the ENERGYbits, the spirulina, into my daughter's morning routine. And, 3 teenage daughters, they're not too keen on fish oils, to be quite honest. But with the spirulina tablets, it's just, it just merges kind of seamlessly into what they're doing, and they just don't even really notice it, to be honest, in terms of taste. But obviously it has all of these incredible knock-on impacts. So, we've established that it's full of protein, all of the essential amino acids, that it's got 40 vitamins and minerals, that it is replete with omega-3 fatty acids. It's low glycemic, it's low caloric, it's environmentally sustainable. I think it even protects LDL cholesterol from oxidation and might reduce blood pressure. So there's all these other things.
It reduces blood pressure. It reduces cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. Your skin improves. It has more collagen in it than collagen powder. It has more antioxidants than anything else in the world, especially the ones that protect your mitochondria. There's nothing wrong with algae. The only problem with algae, especially spirulina, is people don't know about it. And yet, and I remind people, algae isn't new. First of all, remember, it's 4 billion years old, but the Egyptians used it 2,000 years ago. The Aztecs grew it 250 years ago as a main food source. And it's been used in Asia daily for the last 50 years. The Japanese don't leave their house without Chlorella algae, which we'll talk about in a minute. And they have, by the way, have the best longevity, lowest cancer rates, lowest obesity rates, and great skin and hair. So I'm here to help the rest of the world understand the benefits of algae, because why should the Asians be the only ones getting all these benefits? And it's been grown there for 50 years. It's a multi-billion-dollar agricultural crop. Remember, it's a crop. It's not a supplement. But 99% of it is consumed there. And so they really haven't done anything to help Americans or anywhere else around the world understand what algae is. And I got into this because my younger sister had breast cancer, and she's fine now, but her oncologist told her to change her diet to an alkaline diet, which led me to plant-based nutrition, which led me to algae. And when I read all the science about algae, there's 100,000 studies documenting all the efficacy of the benefits we're going to talk about today, and it's been used safely, and it's just never been explained to anybody. I thought, okay, I know my mission in life now.
Well, yeah, and obviously NASA took a keen interest in it because NASA was putting astronauts into space and had to make sure that they were getting a full nutrient-rich diet, but there's not a lot of space. You're not going to take a whole, a lot of vegetables up in space with you. So they did a tremendous amount of research on spirulina, and so you're standing on solid ground as far as the research goes, for sure.
Well, in fact, now that you mentioned NASA, I'll show you this one chart. So using that calculation of 1 gram equals the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of vegetables, we sell our algae in these large bags of 1,000 tablets, and I used that calculation and realized there was 550 pounds, the nutrition of 551 pounds of vegetables in every bag of 1,000 tablets. Unbelievable, right? Think about it. That's 551 pounds of vegetables you didn't have to carry home from the grocery store. You didn't have to clean, cook, eat, or fight with your kids or husbands to eat. So, and also, or throw out because they go bad so quickly, because there's just not the same nutrition as there used to be. Our soils are so damaged. Our ozone layer is causing our vegetables to have more sugar, less nutrients. So it's what I call efficient nutrition.
Yeah. And that's actually a really interesting point, Catherine, that I actually hadn't really thought of, or is that, we throw away 33% of the food that we grow, and it's generally in a landfill, which then produces, methane greenhouse gas. Yeah. So this is a totally efficient and sustainable approach to getting all of these nutrients and proteins and omega-3s, and then protecting our mitochondrial function, which I'd love to start
Yes,
to
we'll get
explore,
into that.
Go ahead.
So it's the efficiency is for you as a consuming it at home, because if you took 10 tablets a day, a bag of those tablets would last you 3 months, which is pretty sweet. And at $125, although we have a 20% discount code we'll share at the end, it works out to about $1 a day. $1 a day to get your 5, 6, 7 servings of vegetables in a second. I can't emphasize enough how effortless this is. You just, I like to chew mine, but most people swallow them. So while we're talking, I just had a plate of vegetables. How easy is that, right? And, we get emails from customers who thank us because now they don't have to fight with their children any longer, begging them to eat vegetables, or their husbands, or, older people get gas. They don't have the digestive enzymes that they used to have. Remember, spirulina has no fiber. In Japan, if babies can't digest mother's breast milk, the only thing that keeps them alive is spirulina in water, because it has the same amino acid profile, and I'm the one that discovered that, and all that GLA. So it is really good for you, but as you pointed out, so good for the earth. There is zero waste, zero biomass from a crop of algae. And here's the, it uses a third of this water that traditional crops use, those traditional crappy crops that are acidic and don't do any nutritional improvements for you, like corn or wheat. It uses a third of the water, and because algae kills bacteria, you can reuse the water when you grow it. So it's very efficient on water. And think about it. You get one crappy crop a year of corn or wheat. Algae takes a month to grow, about 2 weeks to dry, and then to tablet. You can get 10 crops a year when you grow algae, versus one that has no nutritional value, is draining our aquifers from all of our water, creating a massive amount of biomass that's causing methane release. So, and yet you get 200 times more protein per acre than you do from animal farming. I'm very big on regenerative animal farming, by the way. I don't want to, give you the wrong impression, but this is just very, very efficient, eco-friendly, sustainable farming. And if I do my job right, I'm going to help the world learn about it so they can start growing these, setting up these farms around the world. The United Nations was right 50 years ago. It is the answer to world hunger. There was a big article in I think Time magazine, or one of the big newspapers, about algae is the answer for feeding America and the world. And they're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I suppose because it's photosynthetic, that it's also sequestering carbon along the way.
Exactly. It's pulling out carbon, and it's contributing oxygen. It actually provides 80% of the oxygen on Earth. It's not the rainforests in the Amazon. It's actually the algae. But anyways, it's I'm in love with algae, as you can tell. I'm very passionate about it. I think I'm green from the inside. I'm very proud of it. And I'm so grateful to have stumbled into it and seen the benefits and read the science. I just am eager to share the discovery with the rest of the world. You're going to find out about it eventually. You can't keep algae hidden much longer. In fact, I'm doing a TED talk on that, so stay tuned. But now let's switch over to chlorella, because we put the spotlight on spirulina, which is very energizing and nourishing, can replace many of your supplements, including fish oil, a multivitamin, and it's food. So it can also replace snacks, protein, and it's so safe. You can give it to newborns, teenagers, and your grandparents, and great grandparents who may have compromised digestion. They'll get more nutrition from a couple of tablets than they probably have had all week. So very, very good for them. But the next algae I want to talk about is chlorella, which developed about 1 billion years after spirulina. Spirulina blue-green, first life on Earth. Chlorella about 1 billion years later, which does belong to the plant kingdom. Spirulina is a bacteria. So spirulina, chlorella's claim to fame is that it has the highest chlorophyll in the world. Spirulina has the highest protein in the world. And so you say to yourself, well, what's so important about chlorophyll? And I'm going to show you another chart here. This is the chemical composition of your hemoglobin, and this is the chemical composition of chlorophyll. Notice that they're virtually identical. This is because and the only difference is chlorophyll has magnesium in the middle, which we need, and your blood, hemoglobin, has iron. Iron is what carries oxygen in your blood. By the way, both algae have the highest concentration of iron in the world. So anyways, chlorophyll builds your blood. Chlorophyll has been used for centuries, way before the pharmaceutical industry got to us, to help people heal from injury or surgeries. In fact, they used to give liquid chlorophyll to people after surgery if they didn't have enough blood for transfusions, and they would heal just as fast. So number one, chlorophyll builds your blood. And when you have healthy blood, you're going to have a healthier body, healthier brain, healthier gut. So that's number one. Number two, and this ties back to our discussion earlier on omega-3, chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. The blue pigment in spirulina is a water-based pigment, which is why it helps heal the blood and also stops the growth of tumors. But chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. I discovered this because you can do this at home too. Put a couple of tablets of the spirulina on a plate, with some warm water, and watch the beautiful blue pigment disperse evenly through the water. But when you do the same thing with the chlorella, the green just kind of clumps and it doesn't disperse. The blue looks like this. It's gorgeous. I did this 20 times and then I finally checked my science and found out that chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. And this is important because it builds your cell walls just as effectively as omega-3, D3, vitamin E, and your cell walls are made of fats. They're called lipids. And you need healthy cell walls in order to have a healthy body. It allows nutrients in and toxins out. So chlorophyll is very cleansing because of that. It heals the cell walls. That's why a lot of people, when they do vegetable cleanses and juicing, a lot of it's the chlorophyll that's healing the cell walls so that you can have an effective, good and strong cellular lipid profile. The other thing about chlorophyll and the algae in general is that it's the most alkaline food in the world. And your body, your cells need to be, if you don't know about the alkalinity acidity scale, it goes from 0 to 14. And your cells need to be just slightly alkaline, 7.1. Your blood actually needs to be more alkaline, it needs to be 7.34. And when it's alkaline, then this is indicative of oxygen being present, the health of the cell is protected. Otto Warburg was a German scientist who discovered that cancer can only exist in an acidic environment. So when you take algae, you're not only getting all these other benefits, you're helping preserve the correct alkalinity of the cell. And when you start to get cancer cells, by the way, when we're going to, talk about a little bit how please stop eating sugar and processed foods, because cancer cells have anywhere from 10 to 50 times more receptors for insulin. They just gobble up sugar like there's no tomorrow. So we want to prevent that from happening by keeping the cell slightly alkaline so that you can have a healthy engagement and prevent cancer. And if anyone does have cancer, this will help you restore your cellular pH, and it gives you many other benefits as well. But back to chlorella. So high chlorophyll, which builds your blood, which builds your cell walls, very alkaline. It kills bacteria, which bad breath is a cause of bacteria. It has fiber, which feeds your gut, your biome. The molecules want that for the short chain fatty acids, and it's very cleansing to the colon. So it's very colon friendly. And most importantly, chlorella has the hardest cell wall in the plant kingdom. This hard cell wall, which has to be cracked at production, attaches to toxins. All the heavy metals, lead, mercury, radiation, aluminum. It also attaches to alcohol, lactic acid. So athletes use it after a workout. So it chelates all the pesticides, glyphosate, anything that should not be in your body. Chlorella will pull it out. Chlorella also has the highest glutathione in the world. We'll talk about that later on, but glutathione is also a detoxing antioxidant, and it particularly targets your liver. Your liver is kind of like your water treatment plant. It pulls all the toxins out of your body. So because chlorella is very healing and detoxing, it's very much a wellness algae. So we called our chlorella ENERGYbits because it helps you recover your health. We thought that was a little easier to remember than chlorella, which is sometimes hard to say or hard to spell. And because your body goes through a detox repair cycle when you're sleeping, and because chlorella also has the highest tryptophan in the world, which is a precursor to melatonin, it has very high melatonin, it helps you get to sleep. And also, while you're sleeping, it's pulling out all the toxins from your brain, from your cells, and it will facilitate a much better repair. So you're getting your beauty sleep. Chlorella's in there as your cleanup crew, just like on the beaches, and getting rid of the stuff that shouldn't be there. It also facilitates peristalsis, which is known as a bowel movement. So you get rid of the stuff, the junk in your trunk, stuff that shouldn't be there. And if you but to get the detox benefits, well, let me back up. To get the wellness benefits, same like with spirulina, 10 a day is sufficient because you get all that rich chlorophyll, 40 vitamins and minerals, zinc, all the things that build your immune system. But if you want detox benefits, you need to step it up to about 20 or 30 because you need that much to pull the toxins out. Now, the good thing about chlorella is it actually tastes pretty good. So if you try eating it with pistachio nuts or macadamia nuts or any trail mix or anything, now you can have like a bedtime snack that will be facilitating a wellness cleanse while you're sleeping and actually contribute to your sleep as well. Spirulina, most people do swallow it, I will mention, because it's very earthy flavor. I chew to mine. But so because we suggest you take spirulina, you want energy in the morning. We call it an AM algae, and because chlorella helps with your detox and repair when you're sleeping, it's a PM. So AM and PM. And when we get to mitochondria health next, we're also going to talk a lot about the brain, and your highest concentration of mitochondria are in your brain. You have 2 million mitochondria per cell in your brain. Think about that, 2 million. Your brain uses 20% of your energy, but it only represents 1% of your body weight. And so your brain is sucking up all this energy from your mitochondria. And so it's very easily damaged. So that's why when we talk about the mitochondria, you'll find out that spirulina has nutrients in it that protect the mitochondria in your brain better than anything else. So another way to think of algae, spirulina, AM, PM, think about it as brain or the top down. Spirulina works on your health and your wellness from the top down, especially for your brain. And because chlorella has the chlorophyll, the fiber, all the nutrients to heal your gut and your biome, think about it as bottoms up. So top down, bottoms up. Anything to help people understand the difference and when to take them and why to take them is, I find, very beneficial.
Yeah, because I have 3 kids, I think of chlorella as Cruella de Vil,
right,
from 101 Dalmatians, and she was kind of a dark character, so that is more concomitant with the evening.
Yeah.
So,
well,
chlorella at night.
Yeah, it's very well known in Asia, not as well known in America. But we work with biological dentists who use it to pull out mercury from when they take out fillings, because the fillings have mercury in them, and they take it as well as the patient. It was used by the United Nations after Chernobyl to pull out radiation. And when the Fukushima disaster happened about 8 or 9 years ago, the chlorella supply around the world was bought up within 24 hours because they know it's the only thing that stops radiation. And so we were out of stock for about 2 months. Everybody was, because it's a crop, and we had to wait for the next crop to grow and be dried and then shipped over to us. So it has a huge history of healing properties, but as I said, most people don't really know much about chlorella.
Yeah, well, it makes some sense. I mean, a lot of restoration happens during sleep hours. So if you look at like processes like autophagy, which is the breakdown of dysfunctional proteins and cells into their component amino acid building blocks, a lot of that happens at night, or in the glymphatic system in your brain. The cleaning out of beta amyloid proteins happens at night. Even mitophagy, sort of the breakdown of dysfunctional mitochondrial organelles, is happening kind of in the evening. So if you can really think about, the yin yang of your life, which is, daytime and sun and growth and vibrancy, and then there's sleep, which is, restoration and repair, et cetera. And unfortunately, we get out of whack there, and we're a society that sanctifies growth all the time at the expense of repair, and of course we're dealing with a lot of chronic disease because of that confusion. So I think the way that you've been able to frame it, I think is an excellent framing for people.
Well, and we are human beings, but we are so focused on being human doings. And thank God sleep is being recognized not as a cop-out, but as a healing mechanism that's free. Here's the great thing about health. The good stuff is all free. Fresh air, sunshine, sleep,
fasting,
meditation. Algae's not free, but it's the most effective and concentrated nutrition in the world. I'm so pleased and grateful and honored to be connected with algae, because I'm so grounded in Mother Nature, and she gives us everything we need if we would just stop doing and start being a bit more. Like the vegetation and the plants, they just they don't fight with each other. They're not trying to overstrive.
Yeah. Well, there's a line from the Tao Te Ching. I do nothing and I leave nothing undone. And I laugh because my children have become academic Taoists.
Oh, great!
They do nothing and they leave nothing undone.
Yeah,
doesn't always apply to homework.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's
dig into the mitochondria.
Because obviously we know from biology 101 that the mitochondria are the power plants of our cells, but there's so much more than that. So maybe you could break down some of the roles and responsibilities of the mitochondria and some other key data, so we're aware of where they exist in greatest prevalence, et cetera.
Right. Well, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, we have nutrients that our body creates for us that protect our mitochondria from free radical damage. But that protection disappears after about the age of 30 or 40. And I want to show you this chart. This is the chart showing chronic disease. 50% of Americans have a chronic disease. And when you get to 65, and by the way, I'm 66, when you get to 65, it goes up to 80%. This is serious stuff. And I'm going to explain to you how we can turn around that scenario, because getting to 80 or 90 when you're unwell is not an achievement. Who wants to be unwell when you're 80 or 90? You want to be healthy. So what's happening is they're realizing whether it's brain disorders, cancer, heart disease, it's all due to a mitochondrial dysfunction. And there's a book I just finished reading called Brain Energy by Dr. Chris Palmer, who's a psychiatrist at the Harvard Medical School. His entire book is all about how mental health, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, Alzheimer's is a mitochondrial dysfunction. And he's right, it is. But it's also heart disease is a mitochondrial dysfunction. Cancer is a mitochondrial dysfunction. So what is this mitochondria stuff and why is it happening? So here's the deal. Mitochondria, as you mentioned, are what's called the powerhouses of our body. They generate something called ATP, which is cellular energy. You need this cellular energy for everything. Walking, talking, thinking, being, your heart rate, your lymphatic system. You don't exist without ATP. So making sure those mitochondria are generating energy for you is your number one goal, because when they're looked after, you're looked after. And to help people who aren't familiar with mitochondria or your body, I've come up with a little analogy. Think of yourself as a skyscraper. When a new building is born, it's fresh and shiny and everything's working, and when you're born, so are you. And inside the building are offices. Some of them are specialized because and they're bigger because maybe somebody's taken a couple of floors. And in your body, you have those offices would equate to cells. You have liver cells, you have heart cells, and they all do different functions, just like different companies in the offices. But nothing happens in the building without lights. The lights are what keep everything happening in the building. And in your body, those lights are your mitochondria. Now, here's the problem. Everything's working great when the building's, brand new. Same with you when you're brand new born. But over time, the lights start going out and the building falls into disrepair and the maintenance people go away. And so nobody's repairing the lights. And slowly people start leaving the building and the offices are empty. Well, the same thing happens with your body. If as you get older and you don't have the antioxidants we're going to talk about in a minute that preserve and protect your mitochondria or restore them, your lights go out. And then more lights go out. And eventually, virtually all of your lights are out, and that's when chronic disease hits. So what I want you to think about is, and the good news is it's not a permanent condition. Our bodies have about 30 trillion cells in them, and they're always restoring. Every day 30 trillion die, and every day 30 trillion more grow. So whatever condition you may be experiencing does not have to be terminal or permanent, but you need to give your body what it needs. You need nutrition, you need sleep, you need sun, you need love. I can't work on the love, but I can give you the nutrition. And so the nutrients that we're missing because our soils are so damaged and we have overprocessed foods and blah, 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 can be found in the algae. And so the algae is so concentrated and so perfectly matched to your mitochondria because your mitochondria came from algae, we can get your lights back on and restore your health. And so that's the big picture to understand how your body works. So this cellular energy, it's generated in the mitochondria. And I'm going to show you a picture of your cell. So here's your cell. And in your cell, you have a nucleus. And then these little peanut-shaped things are your mitochondria. Now, remember, there's 2 million of these little peanut-shaped things per cell in your brain. The next highest concentration are in women's eggs, because it takes a lot of energy to create a new human. And the third concentration is in your heart, which is about 7,000. But there's 2 million of these per cell in your brain. Now, inside the mitochondria, this is where the ATP is produced. But a byproduct of ATP is free radicals. Free radicals are like smoke. If you have a fire, and smoke is a byproduct. And the free radicals are very damaging, and they're particularly damaging to the mitochondria DNA, because your mitochondria DNA are located right exactly where the ATP and the free radicals are. Now, your mitochondria only have 13 DNA, and you think, oh, 13, that's not very much. But those 13 control absolutely all 25,000 of these DNA. This is your nuclear DNA. They control the communication on your cell walls. They control everything. In fact, your mitochondria DNA are like an air controller at an airport. They control everything. And so when they're working well, everything works. But when your mitochondria DNA get damaged, it's like at an airport. If your air controller wasn't on his game or was playing ping pong or something, planes would crash. This is what's happening to your health. Your mitochondria DNA are being damaged because they are ringside where all the free radicals are being thrown off. It's like if you sit near a fireplace or a bonfire, you get too close, sparks fly, and you can get burned. So it's exactly what's happening to your mitochondria DNA. They only have a lifespan of 10 to 30 days, whereas your regular DNA lasts a lifetime because they're nowhere near where the free radicals are. And when they get damaged, the cells start deteriorating. Communication of the cell walls deteriorate. You get into what's called fission, which is a bad way to have your cells die because they sort of explode and all the bad cellular DNA that's been damaged spreads out. You want to have what's called autophagy, where the cell goes, oh, I'm not feeling so well. I think I'll just kill myself, and it gets rid of itself. But when you have damaged mitochondria, this is what a healthy DNA mitochondria looks like. A damaged mitochondria looks like this. Now, when the ATP is being produced, it has to communicate, and when they're damaged, they can't communicate because you've got these big gaps. This is what's called the Krebs cycle, and so because there's gaps, more free radicals are produced because they leak out of what's called the electron transport chain. So now you got more damage because they're damaged, and then the cycle just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. This is why you have a downward spiral in your health after the age of 40. It's just, and I'll explain why that's happening. So the key to life, the key to preserving your health, protecting your health, not having chronic disease, not aging, is to protect your mitochondria from free radical damage. And there's 2 ways you can do that. So let me tell you what they are. The first one is to reduce your free radicals, and I'll tell you about how to do that. And the second is to remove the free radicals. The problem is most antioxidants cannot get into the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Remember we mentioned earlier, all membranes are made of fat. Well, and so there is one of those membranes, a lipid membrane around mitochondria. But mitochondria are the only cell structure in your body with a second membrane. It's an inner membrane, and your traditional antioxidants cannot get in there. And why is that inner membrane there? Because it's left over from its evolutionary beginnings when it was an individual anaerobic cell that got engulfed by the larger aerobic cell. That original cell structure never disappeared. It just got engulfed and covered with a regular one. So here we are. We have this inner membrane, and normally these membrane, the fat membrane, has what's called porins. These are little channels that allow antioxidants and proteins in and out. But there are no porins in the inner membrane, and the only antioxidants that can get in there are glutathione, melatonin, superoxide dismutase, also known as SOD, and chlorophyll. Now, I'll tell you, without spoiling the surprise, algae has the highest concentration of all four. But here's the good news. Superoxide dismutase, melatonin, and glutathione are made by your body. Ta-da! They protect you naturally from the moment you are born. And what they do effectively is they turn all those free radicals into water. It's like having a fireman in there hosing down all the most damaging one is called superoxide, and of course superoxide dismutase reduces it. So normally, or up until the age of 30, good to go. You got all this great protection from all these fabulous 3 antioxidants. And of course, your body doesn't make chlorophyll, but in algae has the highest chlorophyll. But here's the problem. You have all these great antioxidants when you're born, you're a teenager, 20, 30, and then boom, your body stops making them. And this is exactly when chronic disease hits. And this is because your mitochondria are no longer being protected with those 3 antioxidants that your body normally makes. And this is exactly when chronic disease hits. Now, I thought about that and I thought, well, that just doesn't make any sense. Mother Nature's so smart. Why would she stop making these critical antioxidants that aren't found in food, by the way, in any medicinal amounts? Zero. And I finally did some research and found out why. It's because humans have existed for about 2 million years. We've only lived past 30 in the last 1,000 or so years. Our biology has not caught up with our destiny. Our body still thinks we're going to die at 30. That's why. So when you're older, this longer age period span only started happening in the last 100 or 1,000 years. Our body thinks we're going to die at 30. That's why your body stops making these critical antioxidants, glutathione, melatonin, and superoxide dismutase. It's all documented. It also, your body slows down at the production of mitochondria too. So here, it's a perfect storm for disease. Your body's not protecting your mitochondria, and by the time you're 30 or 40, you've been absorbing all these toxins. So here it is. This is where inflammation hits. This is damaged mitochondria. This is chronic disease. It doesn't matter whether it's Alzheimer's, heart disease, cancer. You're a sitting duck because your body can't protect you like it did when it was younger. But the good news is you can change that. And algae has the highest concentration of glutathione, melatonin, superoxide dismutase, and chlorophyll in the world. And we can flatline that inflammation. And we can bring back your health. We can turn back the lights. We can turn the lights back on in your mitochondria because they will regenerate. Because when your mitochondria is damaged, things like your telomeres shrink. Telomeres are the little caps on the ends of the DNA, and when they get shorter, that's a prediction of shorter longevity and damage and health. Because when they get so short, the DNA starts to unravel, and then the cells duplicate and they get damaged, and they replicate in a damaged form. Superoxide dismutase, which is one of these critical antioxidants, has been proven to extend the life of your telomeres. Ta-da! So it's pretty exciting stuff. We're doing actually a clinical trial right now with an organization called Gray Team. They a nonprofit that is dedicated to stopping suicide rates in veterans. And we're just giving them, we just started about 2 weeks ago, we're giving them 30 tablets of spirulina every day. They're not changing anything else. And we did a brain scan before we started the program, and we're going to do another one after. And we're doing sleep monitors and everything. And I am convinced that we will see that the inflammation levels have gone down just from the spirulina because of the superoxide dismutase, the glutathione, the melatonin, also a little bit from the omega-3, but mostly from these 3 nutrients that protect your mitochondria. So the great thing is, you get the immediate benefits of spirulina. Your hunger is satisfied. You get energy for the day. You get the immediate benefits of the chlorella. It pulls out toxins. It builds your immune system. It's a replacement for your greens on a daily basis. But on a long-term basis, it's protecting you at the cellular level so that whether you have a chronic disease, we can reverse it. or help reverse it. I have to be careful. And if you don't want one, and who does, we can help prevent that. And it's strictly from nutrition. But I want to point out that it's not just any algae, because most algae companies use high heat to get out to market because they're lower price, higher volume. Superoxide dismutase is an enzyme. And so high heat kills enzymes. So that's why people try ours and they go, well, I'm going to go use a cheaper one. And they always come back because they don't feel the same results. And it's one of the reasons is because the superoxide dismutase has been denatured if it's in an algae that's been heated to get to market. So I'm, I didn't make algae. It's Mother Nature's at her best. It's so similar to mother's breast milk. I did the analysis, so I consider it Mother Nature's breast milk for us. Mother Nature always has our best interests at heart. We are part of nature. It doesn't get any more natural than algae, particularly ours. We do third-party lab tests, by the way, because we sell through doctors and chiropractors and functional medicine. And by the way, if any listeners are practitioners or in the biohacking community, definitely reach out to us. Contact us at customercare@ENERGYbits.com. We'd love to work with you. But it is truly the most concentrated, nutrient-dense, safe, pure, scientifically proven nutrient that I think is going to change the world. And I'm so honored to share my knowledge with you. I've been researching algae for 13 years. And every day I learn something new. It's like, oh my God, you do that too. It's like having a child prodigy on your hand.
Well, you certainly are a passionate champion and advocate for algae. And sometimes I think it's helpful just for me to reiterate some of the messaging so people can understand and it really sticks with people. So I think everyone has a sense for how important the mitochondria is. Obviously, it produces energy, but there's so much more happening there. It's also regulating the production of neurotransmitters and hormones. It's an ion pump, so it moves calcium around. It's the electrical signals that enable brain cells to communicate. It plays a role in gene expression and even stress response. So there's so many different roles and responsibilities inside the mitochondria, but of course, the primary one is the production of energy of adenosine triphosphate, as you've eloquently outlined. And as a product of creating that energy, naturally, our mitochondria create a certain amount of free radicals or reactive oxygen species, more if they're using glucose than ketones or free fatty acids. So that's one reason. And I know that Dr. Gundry. He wrote a book about how ketones have these uncoupling proteins that reduce or trigger these uncoupling proteins in the mitochondria that reduce the production of free radicals. But free radicals get produced. There are these, active compounds, with electrons and their unpaired electrons in their outer shells. But we have naturally, endogenously, this production of antioxidants, like you said, melatonin and glutathione. It's a miracle, right? That, this, again, the yin yang.
Yeah.
But we stop producing them efficiently over time because on some level our body is coded that way.
Yes.
But we have some agency over trying to find a more healthy balance between the production of free radicals and antioxidants. And if we don't find that balance, the free radicals will damage our mitochondria, and the knock-on impacts of that are multifarious, but we stop producing energy and we start to develop the symptoms or the presentations of all sorts of chronic disease. And I'm glad you brought up Chris Palmer. He was on the show recently. We delved deep into this unifying theory about how many mental disorders are actually metabolic disorders of the brain.
Right.
It's actually fascinating. It is mitochondrial dysfunction that is at the source of a lot of depression, autism, ADD, ADHD, OCD, PTSD, and every other acronym that we can think of at this juncture. So this is key to our health span and our
Yes.
lifespan.
Correct.
But our ability to live healthy through our life and thrive. And like, you say, and I talk a lot about this on the show, is that, the prevalence of chronic disease, especially after we turn 60,
80%. 80%.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And the implications of this are huge. Obviously, it's a tremendous amount of suffering for the individual. It's a tremendous amount of suffering for those friends and family of the individual that then need to care for them. But there's also a tremendous toll on society where we're spending $4 trillion a year managing the symptoms of chronic disease,
Right.
generally through pharmaceutical drugs.
Exactly. And as we know, the pharmaceuticals don't correct the problem.
That's right. They don't address root cause.
No.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're offering a solution to this panoply of issues and problems, and you're doing it with incredible passion and eloquence. So I'm very, very grateful. I want you to make sure that you message our audience here in terms of how they can avail themselves
Yes.
of ENERGYbits, and obviously the Chlorella as well.
Yeah.
So please let us know where we can find
Sure.
you, the product,
Yeah.
all of the above.
Well, our main website is ENERGYbits.com, ENERGYbits, and we have a 20% discount code for everybody. It works on all the products. The code is Commune. Just put it in the box when you check out. And just as a recap, we have bags. Spirulina is the blue bag. It gives you energy. By the way, there is a second spirulina, and it's called Beauty Bits. They are absolutely identical. And the reason why there's two, and I'm not trying to trick anybody, but I found that women didn't like the packaging. And because it has more collagen than collagen powder, antioxidants to stop wrinkles and everything. And because I started the company because of my younger sister, so having breast cancer, and so women's health has always been important to me. I thought, well, I'll just make one that's pretty. So we have a boy spirulina and a girl spirulina, but they are absolutely identical. Not trying to trick you. I just want you to feel comfortable with them. The large bags are the best value, but we also have canisters that come with a bag in them, and then you just open the bag and shake them out through the opening. And if you buy a canister, you only buy one canister, and then you refill it with the bag. By the way, they're all sustainable, made of cardboard and recycled paper. And if you don't, so this is the spirulina. Chlorella is the wellness algae that pulls out toxins. This is morning, this is PM, or this is your brain, this is your gut. And if you don't want to buy them separately, we do have a blended algae tablet called ENERGYbits that has it's a blended 50% spirulina, 50% chlorella. If you can, we encourage you to buy them separately, because in the morning, if you're doing intermittent fasting, you want your hunger gone, and that's spirulina. Chlorella doesn't satisfy your hunger. If you're doing detox, chlorella is the best one. So ENERGYbits.com is the website. We're very active on social. We have our Instagram handle is at ENERGYbits. Beauty Bits has their own handle. It's at Beauty Bits. If you want to reach me, you can also just contact us as customer care at ENERGYbits.com. I'm also the chief scientific officer. I also design everything. But I have written about 500 papers. I was on 250 podcasts last year. I'm on a mission to help people understand the science of algae and how it perfectly intertwines with the science and needs of your body. So I speak, if you want me to speak, I'd be delighted. You can just reach us at customer care. If you have a practice or a biohacking center, contact us at wholesale@energybits.com. Algae is the next thing. And I'm just, I want to reinforce, it's not new. It's just new to you. And so don't be overwhelmed by it. Just, do some research. We write a big blog all the time on our website. There's lots of science. Just inform yourself and understand that there are different qualities of different suppliers. And we've been known as having the highest quality because we've always put people's health first. So the purest water, no heat, no binders. I just want, and so it's more, there's higher efficacy. So you need less of it to get better benefits. But honestly, algae will change your world. It will change our world. And I'm just so honored that I got a chance to tell you about it and work with algae as much as I have, and you'll enjoy feeling better sooner. I promise you.
Yeah.
The most natural thing in the world and the first life on Earth.
Yeah. Well, Catherine, thanks so much for your generous sharing of information. I know that I've learned a tremendous amount, and so happy to hear that your sister is well and that she inspired you along this journey. And now it's really bent the arc of your life towards giving back and trying to promote greater health and well-being in the world. So well done. And I hope to be continued, because this is just a fascinating topic. We're learning more and more every day. I often call this era the age of agency.
That's really good. I like that.
Between, study new science around epigenetics and neuroplasticity and the microbiome and algae, etc., we are learning that we have a lot more agency over our own health. This age of genetic determinism is largely over.
Exactly. Thank God, right?
I'm not saying that genes don't play a role. They do play a role sometimes.
But epigenetic, it's what triggers it. And on that note, I call myself a citizen scientist because I have an MBA, but I'm completely self-taught on science. And it turns out that I love science. I might even do a PhD. I'm certainly going to be writing a book, but the information is there for us to find, and it's been there for almost 100 years. So I'm just grateful that I seem to like digging through the PubMed is my new favorite place to go, my happy place. But if you don't like the science, just come and visit us, because I do, and I try to make it easy for you. But think of yourself as a citizen scientist too. You are in charge of your health and your destiny, and own it and be proud to own it, because that's the only life you got here is the one you have.
That's right. As our mutual friend Mark Hyman says, be the CEO of your own healthcare.
Oh, I like that. I like that too.
And never has that been more possible. So yes, Catharine Arnston, thank you so much. And I hope we can do it again.
I hope so too. Thank you so much, Jeff. Take care.
All right, thanks. You too.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this interview from the Commune podcast, then click subscribe and check out this video right here.